Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. Do you ever get that unsettling feeling that something is off, but you can't quite put your finger on it? The real question is, do you actually want to find out the truth? For 2 decades, I had been married to Eliza, the mother of our 3 kids. 2 of them were in high school. Life felt steady, until one afternoon at work when I got a text from her. "How soon can you be home?" I frowned and typed back, "Why?" Her response was short and to the point. "We need to talk." I should have left immediately, but I didn't. Instead, I sat there, distracted, staring at my screen. It wasn't until my assistant, Haley, noticed my blank expression that I snapped out of it. As the CEO of a dealership network, I was supposed to be focused, but my mind was miles away. I showed her the message. "Everything okay with your marriage?" "The kids?" she asked. "Far as I know," I shrugged. "Just the usual stuff." Another colleague overheard and chimed in. "Has she been acting differently? Keeping conversations short when you walk in?" I shook my head. "Not that I've noticed, but you know what they say. Husbands are always the last to know." Haley raised an eyebrow. "Wait, why is she home right now? Isn't she supposed to be at work?" That made me pause. I grabbed my phone. "Where are you?" Her reply came instantly. "On my way home." Something didn't feel right. I called her office and hit the record button on my phone. "Hi, I need to speak with Eliza Roberts." A brief hesitation. Then, "I'm sorry, but Eliza no longer works here. She was promoted to the head office. She's on paid leave before transferring next week." I gripped the phone tighter. "When was this promotion announced?" "About 6 months ago." My stomach dropped. If she had been moving up the corporate ladder for half a year, why had she just spent 4 weeks at headquarters for training? And why hadn't she mentioned any of this to me or the kids? I turned to Haley. "If your husband suddenly told you he was being transferred next week, what would you think?" She exhaled sharply. "I'd wonder what else he was hiding." I nodded. "Exactly." I shot Eliza one last message. "I'm on my way." Eliza and I had known each other since high school. Our first meeting. A complete disaster. It was sophomore year lunch break when a friend dared me to kiss the first girl I saw. That unlucky girl, Eliza. I took the challenge. She slapped me across the face. I got sent straight to the principal's office. For the next year, we barely spoke. She was a city girl from Oakfield City who seemed to know everything. I was a small-town guy with nothing in common with her. That is, until prom week of junior year. That night, I was covering a shift at my dad's towing company when a call came in about a wreck. Some idiot had skidded off the road and into a cornfield. The cops were already there when I pulled up. And that's when I saw her. Eliza stood by a police cruiser, her prom dress soaked, hair sticking to her face. I handed her my jacket without thinking. Even drenched, she looked stunning. After towing the car, I offered her a ride home. The officer agreed but insisted on calling her parents first. When we got there, they were waiting at the door. I drove off, forgetting that she still had my coat. Monday morning, she walked straight up to me in the cafeteria. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. Before anyone could answer, she dropped her tray and turned to my best friend, Tony. "Tony, move. I need to talk to James." All eyes were on us as she leaned in and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek. "That's for saving my reputation Friday night," she said. "Meet me after school. I'll return your coat." I hesitated. "I've got gym last period. Might be late." She smirked. "No problem. I know where you live." That afternoon, I drove her home. Her dad was waiting. "Why did you ask the officer to call us that night?" he asked. I rubbed the back of my neck. "There was a bet, sir. I just wanted to clear things up." He chuckled. Eliza blushed. Then she turned to me, her expression serious. "I judged you for 2 years over one dumb mistake. That wasn't fair. How do I make it right?" I grinned. "Take me to the movies Friday. Your choice." From that moment on, we were inseparable. Eliza climbed the corporate ladder, taking every leadership course she could. Meanwhile, I built my father's business into a network of 8 Ford dealerships. Together, we created a home, a family, a life. And up until today, I thought everything was fine. I pulled into the driveway and glanced at the clock, 11:20 a.m. Loosening my tie, I stepped out of the car, preparing myself for whatever truth or lie was waiting inside. Eliza was already there, standing in the kitchen, too composed, like she had already decided how this conversation would go. If I'm staying home for this, should I change? Or is this going to be quick? I asked. This won't be quick, she replied. I went upstairs, swapped my suit for jeans, then sat across from her. All right, start talking. She slid a stack of printed emails across the table. I picked them up. The conversation was between Bianca Adams, one of her bosses, and an assistant preparing for maternity leave. What started as a simple inquiry had escalated into an offer. Eliza was expected to cover the position for 3 months. The wording was cautious, but I could tell she had been pressured into it. I set the papers down and grabbed a beer. I said yes because I didn't feel like I had a choice, she admitted. I start Monday. I'll fly out Sunday and come back on weekends. They set me up with a furnished apartment. It's actually cheaper to rent it monthly than weekly. I reached for the emails again, but she pulled them back. Eliza, where are the rest of them? She sighed, retrieving them from her briefcase. Thought you were done. Just then, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. It's Henry from work, she said, stepping away. Something wasn't adding up. I picked up her phone and checked the caller ID. It wasn't Henry. It was Bianca Adams. Eliza was lying. I shot Haley a quick text, asking her to dig into this temporary position. While waiting, I peeked inside Eliza's briefcase, mostly empty, except for a notebook with a Greenport address and an unnamed phone number. I snapped a picture before shutting it. Eliza returned moments later. Change of plans, she announced. I need to fly out earlier than expected. Bianca wants to personally help me settle in before Monday. I folded my arms. This was decided long ago, wasn't it? James, it's not like that. Actually, it is. If this was truly last minute, you'd be scrambling. You're way too calm for this to be sudden. Her face changed. It was the same guarded look she had years ago, when Calvin Ross had falsely claimed our second daughter wasn't mine. That had been a scam. This. I wasn't so sure. I grabbed my keys. Where are you going? She asked, her voice less steady than before. I opened the door. To pick up our daughters so they don't have to walk home. It took me about 10 minutes to reach my daughter's school. After checking in at the front office, I waited outside until the last bell rang. Instead of heading straight home, we made a quick stop for ice cream, and then grabbed burgers and fries to eat at the park. There was something I needed to know. Did your mom mention anything about a trip? I asked casually. The 3 of them exchanged glances before my eldest, Andrea, spoke up. No, Dad. What trip? I let out a slow breath. She told me today that she's taking a 3-month assignment at corporate. Plain she just found out this week, but from what I've been told, she's had the job for at least 6 months, and it's permanent. Their faces went blank. Are you and Mom getting divorced? My middle daughter, Sophie, asked hesitantly. Wait, did you cheat on her? Is that why she's leaving? Lucy, my youngest, blurted out. I nearly choked on my soda. What? No, thanks for the vote of confidence, though. They stayed quiet as I continued. There's no indication of divorce. Our accounts are untouched. The only thing I know for sure, she lied. When we get home, just keep in mind that whatever she tells us may not be the whole truth. Lucy frowned. What if the people you talked to were lying instead? I pulled out my phone. Then listen to this and tell me what you think. I played back the recording of the receptionist from Eliza's office. Sometimes it's better to let people reach their own conclusions. After a moment, Sophie spoke up. "Dad, what exactly has Mom been doing all week with all this free time?" I sighed. "Your guess is as good as mine. I could dig into it, but hiring professionals takes time. For now, we need to figure out what we do next. We can't stop her from leaving," Andrea pointed out. "And we don't have enough solid facts yet. I hate the whole wait and see thing." Lucy groaned. "What if we never actually find out the truth?" "You can't force the truth," I told her. "And even if we do get answers, they may not be the ones we want." Sophie hesitated. "What if Mom's the one having an affair? Or what if she's in some kind of trouble?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Eliza. "Where are you?" she asked. "We're at the park," I said. The kids had burgers, fries, and ice cream. Since the school pickup was unplanned, I figured you'd appreciate the extra time to get things in order. Plus, now you don't have to cook. We're also talking about how to handle everything while you're away. You didn't think to call me," she snapped. "The way you're talking makes it sound like I'm never coming back." I clenched my jaw. That was an odd thing to say. Was it a slip-up? Guilt? I did call. Twice. "The kids can confirm. You were busy," I replied evenly. "I told them about your plans. They're just confused about why you seem so calm about it." "We'll discuss this when you get home," she said, before hanging up. I immediately texted Haley, asking her to look up the address and phone number I had found earlier. Within 5 minutes, she got back to me. Both belonged to Bianca Adams. At dinner, I watched as my daughters tried to get answers from their mother. But Eliza just kept repeating the same rehearsed story. Seeing Eliza off at the airport brought an unexpected sense of relief. She had no idea that my father and I had hired a private investigator to track her movements. Later that day, my parents stopped by. Watching my daughters struggle to process their mother's deception was brutal. No matter how much you explain, kids always find a way to blame themselves. My mother had to step out of the room multiple times to compose herself. After dropping the girls off at school, I parked a few blocks away and walked back in. I had set up a meeting with the school counselor, Michelle Brown, to discuss the situation. "I'll keep an eye on them," she assured me. "You're handling this the best you can." When I got to the office, Haley had compiled a background report on Bianca Adams. Turns out she wasn't just an executive. She was the company president at Bright Lane Assurance, having climbed the corporate ladder from an actuarial position. More importantly, her father was the chairman of the board. The week dragged by, but we managed. I hired 2 housekeepers to come in twice a week to help with cleaning and laundry. Eliza only called the girls twice and me once. When she finally came home Saturday morning, she was gone again by Sunday afternoon. Less than 24 hours at home. That night, my daughters sat together, trying to process everything. "Why did she even bother coming back?" Andrea asked. "It felt like she was here, but not really," Sophie added. "She was our mom, but she wasn't," Lucy murmured. I couldn't disagree. When I hugged her, she felt distant, cold. I also noticed how eerily quiet her side of the family had been. What had they been told? As we were heading out for pizza, my phone rang. It was my father. "Hey, Dad." I answered. "We just dropped Eliza off at the airport, taking the girls for pizza. Want to join us?" "No, but I needed to remind you about our meeting with the lawyer tomorrow morning regarding the dealership purchase," he said, then raising his voice. "Hey girls, Grandma and I are sending you lots of love." In the back seat, my daughters cheered. My father had caught on quickly. He was shifting the subject away from Eliza. "Well played, Dad." Later that night, after the girls were in bed, I called him back. "We got the first report, James," he said. "And it's worse than we thought." A chill ran through me. The affair didn't start during her training trip. It's been going on much longer. We have footage of them together at bars, holding hands, dancing, being intimate. They even went shopping at an adult store. The air seemed to leave my lungs. "But I need to know," I managed to say. Who is it? What does he do? There was a long pause. It's not a he, James, my father finally said. It's Bianca Adams. They're living together as a couple. He hesitated. Eliza took off her wedding ring the second she boarded the plane. I froze. For the first time in my life, I physically dropped my phone. I sat there stunned, emotionally drained beyond words. Andrea quietly picked up the phone and pressed it back to my ear. "Grandpa," she whispered, "Dad's broken." I think she made him tell her everything. We sat together for hours, crying until there were no more tears left to shed. At 6 in the morning, my parents arrived to find Andrea and me fast asleep on the couch. My mother went straight to the kitchen to make coffee, while my father gently woke us. I was still groggy, trying to process everything when Andrea spoke. "Grandpa, am I legally old enough to sue these women? Can I take action against their employer? Should I go after them separately or together?" No one had expected that. It caught us completely off guard. "My best guess is yes," my father replied after a brief pause. "But we'll need to consult a lawyer to be sure." I looked at her, still trying to wrap my head around where this was coming from. "What made you think of that?" "With Dad's approval, I've been taking law as an elective at school," Andrea explained. "If there's a legal way to take down Bianca and Mom, I'll find it. I've been handling small student cases for almost 2 years now. My goal is to become a lawyer." That woke me up completely. I went straight to my office and searched Facebook for my wife's name. 2 profiles came up. The first one was familiar. The second was a mystery. Her mistake was using the same profile picture. The second account had been created 8 months ago. When my father saw it, he immediately called the private investigator. Within an hour, the account was accessed. It was filled with timestamps, event details, and interactions, all lining up perfectly with Bianca Adams's profile. The evidence was undeniable. The worst part was that for the past 8 months, they had been openly displaying their relationship. On her second profile, Eliza had listed Bianca as her partner. There was no mention of me, no reference to our children. It was as if we had never existed in her life. I hadn't even noticed that Andrea had been reading over my shoulder. "Mom was leading a double life," she murmured. Which one was real? We gathered Sophie and Lucy and laid everything out for them. Afterward, I called their school to excuse them for the day. While I was making the necessary arrangements, Andrea handed me the phone. "It's Michelle Brown," she whispered. I nodded. "Stay with your sisters. I'll be back soon," I said as I stepped into my office. "Hello, Miss Brown. What can I do for you?" I noticed the girls were excused from school today. "Is this related to what we talked about?" she asked. I exhaled. "Yes, we confirmed last night that Eliza has been having an affair. It's been going on for at least 8 months. When she came home, she was completely detached, like she wasn't really present." "Is it someone older? Younger?" she asked carefully. "Anything I should keep in mind when talking to them?" I hesitated before answering. "It's not a man. It's her boss." There was a long pause followed by a quiet Jesus. A second later, she added, "Sorry about that. Your daughters, and you, must be devastated." For a straight man, I imagine this must feel like the emotional equivalent of when my brother came out to our parents. I couldn't process it at first, I admitted. I was reading the investigator's report when I realized what was happening. I literally dropped my phone. Andrea forced my father to tell her everything. It wasn't an easy night. "Save my number," she said. "If Eliza kept something this big a secret, then mutual friends and family have likely been fed lies about you. Be prepared for some fallout." I passed the message to my father, who immediately scheduled a 1 p.m. meeting with the divorce attorneys. As my daughters got ready, I received an email from the private investigator. 8 months' worth of Facebook posts confirmed that the affair had begun long before Eliza's supposed training trip. But what shocked me the most was watching Andrea interrogate the divorce attorney using her knowledge of civil law. It became clear that since my daughters were legal adults, They could each file claims against Bianca and her company, especially if HR policies had been violated. I messaged Haley, asking if she could track down a copy of the company's HR policies. She responded almost immediately, "Already handled." Last week, a distant cousin had sent me the same document, along with inside knowledge of Bianca and Eliza's relationship. 20 minutes later, our lawyers were analyzing it. While the HR policy officially applied only to employees, the information from Haley's cousin painted an even darker picture. I play the recording of the receptionist's call. Between the Facebook messages, email exchanges, and my recordings, we had all the evidence we needed. Eliza and Bianca had manipulated both my family and their workplace for at least 6 months. By the end of the meeting, my daughters had each decided to pursue legal action, not only against their mother and Bianca, but also against Brightline Assurance for failing to enforce its own policies. I filed for divorce, citing abandonment and infidelity. I also sued Bianca for interfering in my marriage, along with her employer for failing to uphold its own HR guidelines. This wasn't just a breakup. This was a battle. One of the defendants was the company's president. There was no way they could claim ignorance. Then Andrea hit us with something we hadn't even thought of. "We need a court order preventing Bianca Adams and Eliza Roberts from being fired until all the legal cases are settled," she said. At first, none of us understood why. "If the company fires them, it limits their liability," she explained. "They'll distance themselves to cover their tracks. We can't let that happen." The attorneys looked at each other, surprised. None of them had considered that angle. We left the office at 3 p.m. and decided to grab an early dinner. As we sat down, Lucy, always sharp, came up with another smart idea. "We should get new phone numbers but keep these ones turned off. That way, if Mom calls, it'll go straight to voicemail. Everyone, power down your phones." Andrea nodded. "Good call. Pass them over." We handed over our phones. She waved down a waiter and gave them to the hostess for safekeeping. "We'll pick them up when we leave," she said. As we ate, Andrea spoke again. "Dad, after what Michelle Brown said, I've been thinking. The lawyer said they planned this carefully. We should assume they covered their tracks." She turned to Lucy. "From what I've read in cybersecurity forums, we need to assume all our devices are compromised. Until they're checked for spyware, nothing stays plugged in or online." After dinner, we retrieved our phones, but I locked them in the trunk. On the drive home, I made a quick detour. I bought a prepaid, unregistered phone. The next morning before school, I handed Andrea the device. "Give this to Miss Brown," I told her. "She might need it." Then I went to the bank. I canceled every joint credit card, withdrew our savings, and closed out every shared account. I moved the funds into 90-day certificates of deposit, still in both names but untouchable for now. The bank provided full documentation. I made copies and delivered them to the lawyer. Eliza had made her move. Now it was my turn. Early Friday morning, I sent Eliza a recorded conversation with one of her former colleagues. Then, using an old phone, I sent one final text. "This is the last time I ever say I love you." After wiping the data from our old phones, I left them on a park bench. Eliza was with Bianca when she received the message. "Damn," she muttered. "He knows about my real job." 15 minutes later, a courier arrived at her office with a package. Inside, she found the official divorce papers, citing infidelity and abandonment, along with solid evidence from her second Facebook account. She flipped through the documents, her face paling with every page. Screenshots of private conversations, timestamps, receipts, including the ones from an adult store, left no room for denial. By 9 a.m., I reported 4 lost phones and requested permanent deactivation. After paying the final bill, I left the store without looking back. At the office, Haley and I sat down to review everything. "Well, they're going to have to deal with this sooner or later," she said. "They think they're in control, but their legal troubles are just beginning. They have no idea that your daughters are adults, and that means they can take their own legal action. I nodded. And this state still allows lawsuits for destruction of family ties. Eliza's going to try calling soon, but it won't matter. Her entire family received copies of her Facebook post this morning. She won't be able to spin this in her favor. Haley studied me. What do your daughters want from this? Andrea wants payback. I admitted. She keeps replaying what I went through that night in her head. And the others? Sophie and Lucy feel like she abandoned them. They need closure. They're still trying to wrap their heads around the fact that their mother lied to them for nearly a year. Lucy summed it up best. If she did this to us out of love, what would she do if she actually hated us? Haley sighed. Eliza may not realize it yet, but she's lost them for good. There's no repairing this. I exhaled. You're right. I just didn't see it before. She smirked. The nastiest fights are always between two women who hate each other. They never play fair, they never forget, and they never let it go. Am I wrong, boss? Then she grinned. You're smart, sometimes. That morning during her first class, Andrea was called to Michelle Brown's office. Sitting at a borrowed laptop, she uploaded every legal document tied to the lawsuit against Brightline Assurance, Eliza Roberts, and Bianca Adams. She attached screenshots of Facebook posts proving the affair started long before Eliza's supposed training assignment, and a court order blocking Brightline from firing either of them until the case was resolved. Michelle hesitated. Are you sure about this? Once this goes out, there's no undoing it. Andrea didn't hesitate. Everything here is already a public record. Now the world will know too. People assume we're just kids, but we're about to hold a major corporation accountable. Michelle created a new email account under a fake name and pulled up a list of 26 media contacts. Subject line: 3 underage children take on corporate America. The body of the email read: attached are legal complaints against Brightline Assurance, President Bianca Adams, and Regional Manager Eliza Roberts, filed by Andrea, Sophie, and Lucy Roberts. Michelle checked the attachments twice, then hit send. Andrea watched as Michelle deleted the email account. When one outlet picks this up, it's going to spread fast, Michelle warned. That's the goal, Andrea replied. The woman who used to be my mother deserves to be ruined. Michelle admired Andrea's determination, convinced she was destined for a career in law. But she also knew what was coming. Brightline's stock could plummet, clients would panic, and the company would be dragged into a PR nightmare they weren't prepared for. Andrea had trapped them. 2 hours later, the story was everywhere. Brightline's customer service lines were overwhelmed as policyholders rushed to cancel their insurance plans. Business analysts on TV dissected the situation. The company's stock price took a noticeable hit. It also came to light that Bianca had been openly involved in same-gender relationships for years. Meanwhile, Eliza was frantically trying to reach me, but every call went straight to voicemail. When she tried my office, she was told I was unavailable. Panic set in at corporate headquarters. Eliza and Bianca had expected a private divorce, not a full-scale media scandal. Eliza had spent years keeping her 2 lives separate. She never imagined they would collide in such a public explosion. Michelle Brown called me. Sorry to bother you, James, she said. We have a situation. The girl's okay. I asked immediately. They're fine, she assured me. But Andrea just pushed the lawsuit into the national spotlight. It's already bigger than expected. We have 3 news crews outside, and more are coming. Crap, I muttered. Any suggestions besides me coming to pick them up? Not really, Michelle admitted. Andrea's going to have to face them at some point. I'll keep them in my office so you can decide how to handle it. I'm on my way, I said. Looks like I'm about to give the performance of my life. When I arrived at the school, reporters murmured among themselves, "That's the father." 10 minutes later, my daughters and I stepped outside. Andrea walked straight to the cameras, with her sisters flanking her and me standing just behind them. "I'll make one statement," Andrea announced. "No interviews, no questions until the case is over. Let me know when you're ready." The cameras locked in on her. She took a breath and began. "Our family recently uncovered that our mother, Eliza Roberts, has been living a double life for at least 8 months. We had to ask ourselves, which life was real? Which one was fake? She never told us the truth, so we had to hire a private investigator to find out. That's how we learned she was living with a woman, Bianca Adams, who she publicly refers to as her wife. We found hidden social media accounts where they openly acknowledged their relationship. This raises an important legal question. Are they married? If so, then my mother is guilty of bigamy. Since she never intended to tell us the truth, we are forced to believe that, in her eyes, we were the fake life. We also discovered that Bianca Adams isn't just her boss and lover. She's the president of Brightline Assurance. Did my mother get her promotion by sleeping with her? If so, that makes her nothing more than an available woman who was compensated for her services." The crowd gasped. Was my mother a same-gender lover her entire life? Was my father just a convenient cover so she could have children? Did she ever love him? Did she ever love us? Why doesn't she acknowledge us in her real life? Is she ashamed of us? As sisters, we agree on one thing. The woman we once knew as Eliza Roberts, our mother, is gone. This version of her, the one she's chosen to become, is a stranger to us, and she always will be. That's why this disaster she created is heading to court. Andrea turned on her heel. Her sisters followed, and I walked behind them. I was hit by a wave of emotions. Pride in my daughter, shock at her brutal honesty. Andrea had raised moral and legal questions that shattered any excuse Eliza could offer. The drive home took 2 hours as we made sure no one followed us. Everyone sat in silence, deep in thought. When we arrived, my father was already there. He checked all our devices to ensure nothing had been compromised. Everything was clean. In Bayview County, Bianca's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then sighed before dialing Eliza's number. "This just got worse," she said the moment Eliza picked up. "Turn on the news. You need to see this." Eliza walked into her office, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. Bianca pulled her into a brief hug. "No matter what happens, remember, I love you." Eliza barely nodded, already focused on the television. Bianca hit play. The screen showed me and my daughters walking out of the school, the camera zooming in on Andrea as she made her statement. By the time it ended, Eliza was trembling. Bianca tried to comfort her, but nothing worked. That evening, I stopped at a small roadside diner for dinner with my daughters. When I went to settle the bill, the cashier smiled and shook her head. "It's already covered." I frowned. "By who?" A man stepped forward. "I own this place. Your daughter's words today. People needed to hear them." She gave a voice to something so many have gone through. Maybe now my ex-wife will finally understand. At Brightline Assurance headquarters, the legal team was in crisis mode. Andrea had raised questions no one in the company could answer without incriminating themselves. It wasn't just the implication that Eliza's promotion had been inappropriate. The real issue was proving that it hadn't been. The worst part, a high school senior had outmaneuvered an entire team of corporate lawyers, and they had no way out. That night, Eliza's father, Aaron, picked up the phone. "Hello, Dad," Eliza said hesitantly. There was a long silence before his cold response. "Eliza, please just let me." "I'll be clear," he interrupted. "We saw the statement from your daughters. We saw the screenshots from your secret accounts. James sent us everything. And I remember exactly what you told us when you left him. But Andrea is right. We no longer recognize the person you've become." His voice hardened. "As far as this family is concerned, you are dead to us." The line went dead. Eliza's vision blurred, and before she could brace herself, everything went black. Meanwhile, instead of heading home, my daughters and I decided to stay at my parents' house for the weekend. We picked up enough clothes to last a few days. just enough time to reset, reconnect, and process everything without distractions. I sent a quick message to Michelle Brown, letting her know we were safe and where we'd be staying. Later that night, I sat alone in my father's study, staring at the mess of events that had unraveled in front of me. Andrea's words to the media echoed in my mind, forcing me to dissect my marriage under a microscope. How much of it had been real? How much had been deception? And could I ever come to terms with any of it? My mother entered quietly, taking a seat across from me. "It wasn't all a lie," she said softly. "If it were, your daughters wouldn't be standing by your side." I exhaled, rubbing my temples. "It's impossible not to doubt everything." She nodded. "That's normal, but you had a good life." Until Elisa became emotionally entangled with Bianca. He frowned. "What does emotion have to do with it?" She tilted her head slightly. "Do you think this started because of emotion, or was it just physical attraction?" "At first I think it was friendship, then it turned into something more." My mother sighed. "They spent every day together at the corporate office. Sometimes all it takes is one bad decision, one night where the lines blur. If that happened, maybe there was guilt at first. Maybe Eliza drank a little more to drown it out, and Bianca took advantage of that. Once it became emotional, it was over." I shook my head. "Are you suggesting she didn't do this on purpose?" "At the start, no," she admitted. "But love, or what people think is love, has a way of creeping in when you don't expect it." My voice hardened. By the end, it was a choice. If she had truly thought about what she was throwing away, she wouldn't have destroyed our family like this. My mother sighed. "I don't think she ever thought she'd have to face the consequences." I leaned forward. "Mom, she planned every step of this. She and Bianca carefully crafted a lie, one they expected us to accept without question. She set the stage so that when I eventually moved on, she'd have an excuse so she could reveal Bianca and act like the sufferer." My mother's expression darkened. "How do you know?" I exhaled. "Her brother called me this morning after he received proof of their affair. He told me that a week before she left, she had already fed her family a story, that she had caught me cheating while she was at corporate." My mother's face paled. "She told them that?" I nodded. "According to Eliza, she and I had been trying to work through things for months, but it just wasn't salvageable. That's why she had to leave." A voice cut through the room. "Now we understand." My mother and I turned. All three of my daughters stood in the doorway. "Damn it, Dad," Sophie muttered. "Mom was setting you up to take the fall," Lucy added, fists clenched. "If we hadn't found out, we would have believed her," Andrea said. "She wanted to poison us against you." I turned to my mother, whose face had gone completely white. She swayed slightly, and I reached out just in time to catch her before she collapsed. The next morning, my father and I got up early to check on my house. Reporters crowded the sidewalk, waiting for a statement. We drove by one of my dealerships. Same situation, only worse. "Ah, good thing I shorted some Brightline stock last week," my father muttered. "If this keeps up, we might need to find somewhere else to live until the attention dies down." I narrowed my eyes. "Head to the dealership. I'll deal with the press. Whatever I say is going to get back to Eliza and Bianca anyway. Let's give them something to worry about." He pulled into the lot, and I stepped out, making sure to position myself where the dealership's logo was clearly visible behind me. As I approached the waiting reporters, the questions started flying. "How are your daughters coping with all of this?" An ABC reporter asked. Like most kids in this situation, their first instinct was to blame themselves, I said, keeping my voice steady. But as they started to process everything, the doubt crept in. They began wondering if everything their mother ever taught them was a lie. Now they're looking to me for answers, and the truth is, I don't have them. "How did you uncover the affair?" another reporter asked. I exhaled, already anticipating this one. 2 weeks ago, on a Friday, my wife sent me a text. "Come home. We need to talk." Something about it felt off, so I responded, "Where are you?" She replied that she was on her way home. I looked directly into the cameras. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. So I called her office. "Listen for yourself." I pulled out my phone and played the recording. As far as I knew then, I said Eliza was just an assistant branch manager. When she got home, she told me she was being pressured into a temporary corporate transfer to cover for someone on maternity leave. I let out a humorless chuckle. Now we know that wasn't true. I paused, letting that sink in. After my daughter's statement made the news, Eliza's brother called me. He said she told their family she caught me having an affair, tried to work things out, and when that failed, she made the difficult decision to leave. I shook my head. That's not what happened. The truth is, Eliza and Bianca were laying the groundwork for this for months. Eliza would travel back and forth, making it seem like her absence was breaking our marriage. Then when the time was right, she'd file for divorce, blaming me. I turned to the cameras. Once my daughters accepted the divorce, Bianca would conveniently show up, not as a partner, just a close friend. A reporter raised a hand. "Do you believe they tried to paint you as the problem?" "Absolutely." I said, "They wanted my daughters to resent me, to believe I was the reason their mother left." "Why?" "I don't know. Maybe you should ask them." I let a beat of silence pass. "And here's another question. Were they trying to use my daughters against me? Because looking at what I know now, that sure seems like part of the plan." I took a slow breath. And the biggest question of all, was Bianca trying to introduce my daughters to the same lifestyle she introduced my wife to? With that, I turned and walked to my father's car. He was grinning as I slid into the passenger seat. "James, that year you spent working on commission really paid off," he said. I exhaled, still coming down from the adrenaline. "You didn't accuse anyone outright. You just planted enough doubt to make people start asking questions," he said, clearly impressed. "You framed yourself as a father protecting his daughters. And the best part, you made Bianca look like the one who manipulated your wife. Now the pressure isn't just on her, it's on the entire company." He chuckled. "You just implied Bianca seduced your wife. Brilliant. Now Brightline has to prove she didn't." For the first time in days, I laughed. He was right. No judge in the country would let Bianca or Eliza near my daughters unsupervised now, and Brightline had a scandal they couldn't sweep under the rug. That afternoon, as I was about to leave the house, Michelle Brown called. She wanted to discuss the girls returning to school Monday. "Why don't we meet for lunch?" she suggested. "Sounds good," I said. "Fair warning, I'm wearing jeans." She laughed. "So am I." I drove to her place and knocked on the door. She opened it with a small smile. "I caught your press conference," she said. "It was brilliant. Wanna watch it?" I smirked. "Let's do it." She turned on the TV and we watched. On screen, I looked like a man searching for answers, aware of the truth but still piecing it together. My words had ignited discussions across major networks, fueling debates on deception, manipulation, and trust. When the footage ended, Michelle crossed her arms. "That recording. It proved just how calculated their actions were. It made you untouchable. As far as the public is concerned, you and your daughters had no clue until 2 weeks ago." I sighed. I just wanted to take some of the pressure off my daughters. "I've been driving my dad's truck because reporters camped outside our house all night. We couldn't even go home." She nodded. "I get it. Any dinner preference?" "I trust your judgment," I said. She picked a quiet, out-of-the-way restaurant where we wouldn't be recognized. Over dinner, she updated me on what had been happening at the school. Nothing surprised me. I mentioned that Andrea was considering law school, and Michelle asked how the girls were coping. "We have moments where it just hits us," I admitted. They weren't just hurt by the affair. They were crushed that their mother tried to justify it by making me the villain. Michelle sighed. "That has to be hard to process." "It made me realize how politics works," I said. "The truth doesn't matter. It's about controlling the narrative." She nodded. And Eliza and Bianca. I don't know what they were thinking, I admitted. And at this point, I don't care. My only focus is making sure my daughters are okay. After dinner, we walked through a quiet park before I dropped her off. It was refreshing to talk to someone who wasn't analyzing me, just offering genuine support. Michelle had become a real friend. When I got back to my father's house, I found my daughters chatting excitedly about their shopping trip. They all hugged me. But as Lucy pulled away, she wrinkled her nose. "Dad," she whispered, "I smell perfume." "Who is she?" I smirked. "Just a friend." My mother handed me a beer and leaned in. "Come to the den," she said quietly. "You need to see the news." We sat down as the screen lit up with heated debates. My statement had completely shifted the news cycle, turning it from politics to something much more personal: betrayal, family values, and the moral implications of deception. Legal analysts dissected every angle, questioning whether Bianca Adams and Eliza Roberts had deliberately manipulated the situation, possibly even attempting to alienate me from my daughters. Had they engaged in ethical misconduct? Was coercion involved? Then the broadcast cut to Bianca sitting in a dimly lit office, looking rattled as she spoke on the phone. Her father had just called. Brightline's board of directors had called an emergency meeting. Eliza and Bianca sat on the couch, watching their carefully constructed narrative crumble in real time. Eliza's voice barely rose above a whisper. "He knows." Bianca clenched her jaw. "The only thing keeping me employed is the damn court order. If the board could fire me today, they would." Eliza studied the TV, watching my composed but weary expression. "He doesn't have all the answers, just a father trying to protect his kids. And he made it seem like we orchestrated this from the start." Bianca muttered. "You should have been honest. You tried to save yourself at his expense." Eliza buried her face in her hands. "This is my fault. I should have told him I stopped loving him long before I met you." "Sylvia." "No," Bianca sighed. "Your husband isn't just smart. He's strategic. He knew exactly how the media would react. He controlled the narrative before we could." Eliza exhaled, staring blankly at the screen. "I got lost in my own lies. I thought I was protecting everyone, but all I did was burn my life down. I deserve whatever happens next." The next morning, I stopped by a real estate office, surprised to find someone working on a Sunday. A woman at the front desk looked up, then did a double take. "James Roberts." I blinked, recognizing her immediately. "Amy Bronson." "It's been years." She smiled. "It really has. What brings you in?" I handed her a folder. "I need a market analysis on homes like mine. I'm selling." Her expression shifted. "Of course. Let me pull up some listings." As she printed them, I scanned the numbers, then listed my house for 20 grand above market value. She hesitated. "Do you want me to handle communication with your wife?" I nodded. "Yeah. Let her deal with it." Amy picked up the office phone and started dialing. "Who are you calling?" I asked. She glanced at the screen. Brightline Assurance Headquarters. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and handed it to her. "This gives Eliza permission to take whatever she wants before the sale. My daughters and I will have our things out by the end of the week. Whatever she doesn't claim stays with the house." Amy took the envelope, giving me a careful look. "Do you have my direct number?" I nodded. "Yeah. Also, I need you to find me a new place. 4 bedrooms, pool, big lot, privacy." She hesitated. "Is the house in your name alone, or do you need her approval?" "It's mine," I confirmed. "Tell Eliza the proceeds will be held in a trust by my lawyers until the divorce is final. I'm not making any financial moves that could give her leverage later." Amy sighed. "You just want this over with." I exhaled. Eliza has done enough damage. She'll get her fair share in the settlement, but nothing more. Amy studied me as I turned to leave. I could tell she was piecing it all together. The unraveling of what had seemed like a solid marriage. If Eliza had always been drawn to women, she had hidden it well. No one had suspected. But if this was just another affair, why had she flaunted it? Why create a second Facebook account? Why openly list Bianca as her partner? None of it made sense. And maybe, for me, it never would. This betrayal would stay with me forever. Early Monday morning, I arrived at the office before anyone else. The quiet was a welcome change. As I poured a fresh cup of coffee, the phone rang. Roberts Ford Motors. "Good morning. How can I help you?" A deep, measured voice responded. "I'd like to speak with James Roberts." "This is James." "Who's calling?" "Charles Anthony Adams. I'm the chairman of Brightline Assurance's board of directors. If you're open to it, I'd like an off-the-record conversation." I leaned back. "About the disaster my daughter and your wife created, and what it'll take to keep this from spiraling further in the media." I let out a short laugh. "I didn't put this out there, Mr. Adams. The truth was already out. My legal team has been working nonstop to contain the damage," he admitted. "As of this morning, we've managed to pull back some media coverage through our attorneys." "Your legal team?" I mused. "Interesting." He sighed. "Tell me what happened Friday." I took a sip of coffee. "Michelle Brown, the school counselor, called me around 11. I'd asked her to keep an eye on my daughters in case they were struggling. She said news crews had shown up outside the school. To avoid disruption, she asked me to pick them up." Charles stayed silent, letting me continue. "That's when I realized how bad it had gotten. The school didn't want the media interfering with students, so they asked us to leave quietly. But before we did, my eldest daughter chose to speak. I had no idea what she was going to say. She was composed, direct, and furious. Andrea had raised moral and legal questions that directly pointed to Eliza and Bianca," Charles said, "and forced them to face the consequences of their choices. This is a mess." "That's only half of it," I said. "The lies they told to cover their tracks weren't accidental. They planned this." He sighed. "I've received signed statements from Eliza's family, claiming she left you after discovering your supposed affair in Bayview County. They say she spent 2 months trying to save the marriage before walking away." I clenched my jaw. "You do realize I have 6 pages of emails between Bianca and Eliza. They used their corporate accounts over 5 days to fabricate a story, making it seem like Eliza was forced into a temporary transfer." Charles groaned. "I had no idea. I'm heading into a board meeting now." "You didn't even know they were involved, did you?" I asked. A pause. Then, finally, "No, not until it hit the news. But now I understand why you and your daughter handled it the way you did. If I were you, I'd have done the same." I leaned forward. "I don't know what your board will decide, but just so you know, it was my daughter Andrea who filed the injunction preventing you from firing them." Silence. Then Charles chuckled. "She's in 12th grade, right? She's been taking law as an elective," I said, unable to hide my pride. "Well, let her know she made my legal team look incompetent," he muttered. "Without that injunction, Bianca and Eliza would already be gone." I smirked. "Since we're being honest, how do you really feel about all this?" "Thanks for taking my call," he said instead. I hung up, still grinning. When Haley walked in a few minutes later, she noticed immediately. "What's with the smug look?" she asked. Charles Adams just admitted the injunction caught them completely off guard. If Andre hadn't filed it, they'd already be fired. Haley crossed her arms. "You do realize he could have been bluffing to gauge your reaction, right?" "Of course," I said. "That's why I made sure to mention the emails between Bianca and Eliza. If he already knew, my comment confirmed I had copies. If he didn't, well, he's about to find out." Haley smirked. "Not bad." Across town at a real estate office, Amy Bronson had just finished a conversation with Eliza Roberts. To Amy's surprise, Eliza had been calm, professional, and to the point. But when Amy mentioned the house was already on the market, there was a long pause. After a moment, Eliza asked, "When can I come get my things?" Amy explained she could pick them up after the weekend, but anything left behind would be sold with the property. Another pause. "How's James?" Eliza finally asked. Amy kept her tone neutral. "That's not my place to answer, but I will say your husband and daughters had to relocate because of the media attention." Eliza didn't respond. Amy could only hope she was finally beginning to grasp the damage she had done. Meanwhile, at Brightline Assurance, the board of directors met behind closed doors for hours. The stock was still dropping. The head of legal walked them through every mistake. The verdict was clear. Until the legal battles were settled, Bianca and Eliza couldn't be fired or reassigned. Reluctantly, the board agreed to mediation before escalating things to court, at least for everything except Eliza and James's divorce. By that afternoon, the corporate statement was finalized and ready for release. I got an advance copy. It confirmed Bianca and Eliza remained employed only due to a court order, while attempting to reshape public perception, emphasizing that Brightline did not condone any conduct that could be seen as influencing minors inappropriately. I smirked and called my father. "Sell your shares," I said. He didn't hesitate. By the end of the week, we packed up everything and moved in with my parents, leaving the house behind. Too many memories lingered there. My dad and I spent Saturday moving everything into storage, exhausted but relieved. Meanwhile, across the country, Bianca was furious. Her father and the board had abandoned her and Eliza, leaving them to deal with the fallout alone. After a tense meeting, they were told their employment would be terminated once their legal battles were over. Job prospects were grim. That morning, while house hunting with Amy Bronson, she casually mentioned that Eliza had booked a flight for the following weekend to pack her remaining belongings. She had asked friends to help sort through the house, but most wanted to see what was left before committing. That night, I sat my daughters down and prepared them for what was coming. On Sunday, they spent the day with Andrea while I had lunch with Michelle Brown. Over our meal, she shared an update from Bianca's father. Bianca and Eliza were flying in on Friday. I sighed, already dreading the inevitable moment Eliza and Andrea would cross paths. Michelle and I spent the afternoon at a mall, browsing furniture. Unexpectedly, we ran into Eliza's parents, Aaron and Linda. Over coffee, I introduced Michelle and explained our friendship. Then, something surprising happened. I learned my daughters had secretly asked Michelle to look after me, each of them separately. Aaron and I teared up. It became clear, if Eliza had always been attracted to women, none of us had known. Aaron and Linda admitted they had been keeping their distance from their granddaughters, not because they didn't love them, but out of fear. Every attempt to reach out felt like a painful reminder of their daughter's betrayal. On Thursday, Amy showed Michelle and me a newly listed house. 5 bedrooms, 2 master suites, a pool, and an outdoor kitchen. The open floor plan and spacious garage sealed the deal. The previous owner had passed away. I made an offer immediately. Late Friday evening, Bianca and Eliza arrived. They took a cab straight to what had once been our home, unprepared for the message my daughters had left behind. At the center of the empty living room, they had arranged a pile of shredded photographs, memories they no longer wanted. Beside them sat every sentimental gift Eliza had ever given them. The meaning was clear, and it hit hard. The next evening, Michelle, my daughters, and I were having dinner when I spotted Eliza and presumably Bianca walking in. Andrea had stepped away. She passed their table. Eliza said something. Seconds later, Andrea rushed back in tears. Michelle turned to me. Without a word, she leaned in and kissed me. Slow, deliberate, and undeniably intimate. Eliza saw everything. Later, we learned she had tried reaching out to her family, but it was too soon. Mediation failed. We went to court. Brightline tried to overturn the order preventing them from firing Bianca and Eliza. They lost. Their public statements had already admitted liability. The judge ruled they had effectively accepted responsibility. The only question left was how much they would have to pay. Bianca and Eliza were escorted out of their corporate offices with nothing but their personal belongings. The next day, Bianca's father was forced to resign as chairman. Negotiations dragged on, but eventually we settled. I'd bought the new house. My daughters were thrilled. Michelle helped me choose paint colors and refinish the floors. The divorce moved forward. Our old house sold at full asking price to a mystery buyer. Once finalized, the funds were placed in a trust. Brightline opted for a bench trial over a jury. It didn't help them. The hearing lasted a single day. The judge dismissed their argument that they couldn't control personal relationships, highlighting Bianca's executive role and the power imbalance it created. Brightline lost. Each of my daughters received $500,000 in damages, plus legal fees. I was awarded $2 million, double what we had sought in mediation. The divorce was finalized without contest. Eliza received half of our marital property, as required by law. I never saw her again. She didn't even show up to court. Then came the biggest shock. The mystery buyers of my old house, Bianca and Eliza. Later, they sued Brightline and won. As for Michelle and me, we're taking it one day at a time.